my other typical type of client is middle-aged guy, has it all, super successful, and is deeply unhappy, deeply unfulfilled, because they just haven't found what the meaning of life is. And in Western society, and particularly in American society, we get sold this dream, this American dream, right? If you work hard, you make money, you have a nice house, you have an attractive partner, you have your kids, you have a nice car, you'll be happy. And typically, it's a selfish pursuit, and it misses community, and it misses relationships, and human beings need relationships, and we need strong relationships. So there's a lot of middle-aged men that are lonely and unhappy, and especially if that first marriage breaks down because they're focused so much on their career, they've neglected the family and the relationships. And that's why suicide rates of middle-aged men are skyrocketing right now, because there's this huge loneliness epidemic, fueled even more by remote work and social media and people just not spending as much time together. So it's another big motivator for me for running men's groups. So I think we need a society, this recognition of this kind of ego-driven pursuit rather than this purpose-driven pursuit. You know, my purpose is to find smart people and allow them to be even better versions of themselves so they can have even bigger impacts. And this is so important, and to do it in a sustainable and fulfilling way so that they can keep doing that rather than this flash bang, I'm going to burn myself out. And then, as you say, ending in this depression, this loneliness, and then that turns to spitefulness, and that turns to anger.
I'm glad you brought up the men and the suicide rate. You know, it just needs more discussion. And I think the way we think about men and mental health has to alter, because I think we're treating men and women's mental health the exact same, and we're not wired the same way. Now, there's certain aspects, of course, that are going to be similar, but I think men doing things together physically and then speaking about their problems is a really good approach. Because once I feel connected to you physically, like we went for a hike or we chopped wood or we played a basketball game or whatever the case may be, I now feel something with you. And then let's sit down and chat. I'm more likely to open up to a peer than, say, some random therapist that I don't know yet. Now, therapy, of course, it works for some people, obviously. Highly recommend that. But for specifically for men, like, that's a really important part, and men's groups really dive into that. And then there are other guys there who've had similar experiences. You know, I'm talking about that I haven't been intimate with my wife for the last 10 years, and this guy has dealt with it, and he's like, well, here's how we figured it out, and here's the steps maybe you can take, and there's no shame involved, like it happens in a lot of marriages, and those types of things are going to keep men alive, because they are killing themselves at an alarmingly high rate, and there has to be more awareness about it, and there has to be more specific tools that men can use that are geared towards them and the conversations that they might need to have. And I think that's really important, just in regards to men and mental health. And so, yeah, and then I bring up this study almost every episode, but I feel like it's pertinent now, so I'll just bring it up again. Like an 85-year study on happiness. And basically the two results they found, that if you want to live the good life, you need two things: great health and great relationships.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
And then you add like the sub layer of a purpose and a meaning. You have those things. It's just, we make it too complicated, like way too complicated. And then through that, you can have material needs. We all need things. Like, we like stuff, right? We need money. Money's important. You just went through a lot of shit that you needed money for, right? But if that's the driving factor, at some point, it's gonna go away. Now, you can't really tell that to someone who doesn't have anything, right? Because that can be a great motivator, extrinsic motivator. Like, I need to do this because I need money for this. Great. That's some good activation energy that'll get you off your ass. But once you get moving, then I think we can reconfigure what's your driving force. At least that was, in my estimation, it worked, or it made sense.
There's something I want to challenge about what you said, if you're open to it. You open for
please.
me challenging? Okay.
Yeah. Let's go.
I'm going to challenge the notion that men need to do something physical with each other before they can connect. And I'm going to challenge that because Yes, we see that. So typically how men create relationships, they create side-by-side relationships. So we do something, we go play golf together, play basketball together, and our conversations were standing side by side rather than facing each other. Women have face-to-face conversations. They go to eat, they go to drink, and they sit next to each other and they talk to each other. However, I think a lot of that is societal rather than a difference between men and women. We have been taught that. When you look at little kids, boys and girls have very similar emotional ranges and emotional responses. And then what we say to little boys is, don't have those. Grow up, be a man, whatever the fuck that means. And we can talk about that in a minute, but I still don't know what be a man means. And I run thousands of men's groups, like probably hundreds of thousands of men's groups. I don't know what be a man means, but we get told, be a man. And that version is this, it's like, who was the lead actor in Drive? Ryan Gosling. First 45 minutes of the film, he doesn't speak. And then all he does is perform acts of extreme courage, driving cars exceptionally fast, or acts of extreme violence, beating people up. And for 45 minutes, that's all that happens. And this is this version of masculinity where it's like it's not cool to communicate with each other. It's not cool to talk about your feelings and what's going on. But that's not how we're designed as human beings. We're designed to have this full range of emotional experiences. And it's just as important for men to connect face to face as it is for women to connect face to face. But we are taught, especially in Western society, that is not being a man. And, you just think about how often as a kid I was told, don't be weak, don't be a pussy. And the biggest insult to men is either to be feminine, like a woman, or to be homosexual, like a gay man. Yeah. Why? What's wrong with either of those things? And two, why is that an insult? Yet that's what we did, right? I'm just as guilty of calling my men gay and, calling my friends gay and taking the piss out of them and calling them weak and calling them a pussy. And I look back and I'm like, what was I trying to do? I was just hiding my own fears and my own insecurities because I could see them in them rather than stopping and going, oh, I relate to that, mate. Shit, I'm afraid too. I would reject that and I would project it onto them. So I think a lot of it is really undoing that learning, letting little boys have their emotional experience, learn how to regulate their emotions healthily. And I teach men to look at emotions as data. So you're feeling sad. What is that sadness telling you? You're feeling angry. Angry is really a wonderful, powerful emotion. Anger gets you to do things. Anger gets you to change things. The problem is as men, because we haven't healthily experienced our anger as young boys, because it's been hidden and vilified and told we can't have it, we think anger is rage rather than anger is like, hey, I'm feeling some irritation here. What does this irritation tell me? And we're only really allowed to have this rage and then we get scared of it. So now we're scared of our feelings and we don't want to feel them. So I find that actually you can create these situations very quickly with men where they can have these face-to-face interactions and we don't necessarily need to do it that buffer of going and doing sport first or going and doing something physical first. And there's place for that. Absolutely. And I love it. And I still do it. But I think we can actually bypass that and just get straight to the emotional stuff if we create a space where men feel safe and where we remove the two biggest issues for men, which is judgment and fixing. So when men go to a space where somebody's like, you need to be like this, you need to do this, just do this and you'll be okay, that immediately turns off our ability to listen and connect. And then when we go to a space and where people judge us, oh, you shouldn't feel this or you shouldn't feel that, or this is wrong or right. If you take those two things out of the equation, men connect unbelievably quickly. Like the first week of a men's group, I say to men, what's brought you here? And there'll be one guy that will be, well, here's my fucking life story. And immediately that he does that, the bar is raised and every other guy goes, oh, I can talk about this stuff and no one's going to try to fix me or tell me how I'm wrong. And then floodgates are open.
Thank you very much for tuning in to that clip. If you enjoyed it, then you'll love the full-length episode right here. Right here. Click it. Go ahead.